What's up, guys? Today we have an exciting interview with a project that I don't think many people know about, but after today you will have a very good understanding of why I'm so excited about the project and learn a lot more about some of the tech they're building and really the unique advantage of this project that is coming out to the blockchain space. So I don't want to say too much. So thank you so much, Steve, for coming on the CoinCrunch show today. We've been going back and forth for a little while. We got introed by a mutual friend of ours who told me, you guys have to speak with Steve. He's a very knowledgeable person that's been in the space for so long, and he's really building an exciting project. So once again, Steve, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Sai. It's my honor to have a conversation here. And hi, everybody. My name is Steve. CEO and co-founder of the Top Network. What we are doing is we are building an open communication network. It's a decentralized network, and that can offer cloud communication service on blockchain. For example, like messaging, calling, video, CDN, VPN, and IoT, and more communication service. Plus, we are also building a public blockchain platform we call the Top Chain. It will be a very high performance and scalable blockchain platform. Yeah.
Awesome. So before we get into sort of the meat and potatoes of what it is you guys are building, Steve has a really remarkable story, his journey as an entrepreneur, and I think it really ties in everything and it sort of brings it around full circle to what he is building now. So I know, Steve, when we first talked last week, we spoke for like an hour and a half on the phone. And I think a lot of people would be really interested to hear about, the companies that you built in the past and, the amount of users you have on those and sort of like your journey to this point.
So let me introduce myself. I'm pretty little bit old in blockchain industry. I have been in the communication industry for very long, so almost 23 years. So back to 1995, I was still in China, and the one person, his name is Ming. He was the co-founder of WebEx, and most people know WebEx. It's a famous web conference company in Silicon Valley. And he went to Beijing and found me, and we had a very good discussion. And he invited me coming to United States, and I turned down actually. And he said, "How about I give you some money and you find some people, we build something interesting." I said, "That's a good idea." So I put a team around like 10 people, 10 to 15 people, and we were coding. And the prototype we were building later becomes the WebEx conference. And there are some good people in my team. For example, the Eric Yuan, the CEO of Zoom conference. We are using Zoom conference for the interview right now. Yeah, he was also in my team. And later, WebEx raised the funding here in Silicon Valley, and we moved the whole team from China to US. I'm the last person closed the door and moved here in 1998. So that's how I come to United States. And WebEx was very good and grew very quickly. And 2004, I left the company, started my own video conference company. So basically, the company was doing two things. One is a video conference. Another is distance learning. We call it e-learning or remote learning. And people, students and teacher can be interactive in the class. So the company was doing very well. And in late 2010, I sold the company to Huawei, that telecom equipment giant, Huawei, Huawei. And they like our technology because they had the hardware video conference and we had the software video conference. And so there is the synergy, and that's the reason they acquired us. So that's the end of 2010. And I stay in Huawei around about 1.5 years. At that time, the mobile internet was so hot. For app like WhatsApp, was growing so quickly. And I saw this trend, I saw this opportunity. And I'm always an entrepreneur. When I see some opportunity, I cannot control myself. Yeah. Yeah, so I talked to myself, said, Jesus, this is a lifetime window. I needed to catch that. I couldn't miss this opportunity. And I talked to my wife and said, hey, I need to quit from Huawei, do something again. And she said, are you serious? You will leave a lot of money on table because the acquisition has 3 years locked up. And I stayed there only like 1.5 years. So I said, hey, give me a chance, either fly or die. We should try. This is a lifetime opportunity. Yeah. So then I quit from there and started a new company. So the company name is Dingtong. And we are doing 3 communication apps. And let me introduce from the first one. The first one, the name is Dingtong, Dingtone. So this app is basically like Google Voice plus Skype. You can make a phone call, free phone call, or very cheap international phone call. And you can also get a free mobile phone number from the app. For example, you can get a Canadian phone number, US phone number, UK, Australia, a lot of mobile phone number. They are real phone number and they are virtualized number. You don't need a SIM card to get the number. Wow. And yeah, you can receive a text and a phone call to the app without a SIM card. So that's a communication app we built first. And today this app has 36 million users worldwide.
36 million.
Yes, 36 million. And about 30% are in US and Europe, Middle East, worldwide user base. We don't have a user in China.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And so that's the first app. And the second app we have, the name is Cover Me. You think about the name, you can know what it can do. Cover Me. Right? So this app is the first end-to-end encryption messenger app. It was before Telegram. Telegram was released, I think, 6 or 7 months later. We released on January 2013. And this message is really secure. It has so many advanced technology features. However, there is an issue, and this issue actually prevents the app massive adopted. The reason is, because the app is not open source, so people doesn't know how you implement the security stuff, and people still has a concern, and even you are claiming, you say, oh, we are using 256 bits encryption. It really doesn't matter. Yeah, and on the other hand, Telegram did a very smart move. They open sourced the Telegram source code around that time, and actually they are making the software very simple. So a lot of people started using it. And on the other hand, Cover Me is very complicated because it has so many functions. So it's still in the high-end market for people who really care about the security. So today we have only 4 million users of the Cover Me app. It's not a failure, frankly say, but it's not a success, huge success. It's reasonable, okay.
Sure. Well, it seems to be, when I looked into it, the Cover Me app seemed to be more of a specialized solution, like you mentioned, for people looking for much higher level security and encryption. And Telegram is more of a sort of an average person kind of can use it app, whereas the one that you guys built is much more specialized.
Yes, sorry. Initially, Cover Me was not such a complicated, but high-end people always have high demand. They are demanding people, right? Say, hey, add this feature, that feature. So in the end, the product becomes very complicated. Average people cannot use that.
Now, you also have a VPN that you mentioned. Can you talk about that as well?
Oh, yes. So this VPN app is amazing. We released the VPN app. The name is Sky VPN on last September. And today, we got over 10 million users in less than 1 year. And today we are adding 80,000 new users every day. Yeah.
Wow.
So this app grows very, very quickly. And Sai, VPN is not a new thing, right? It existed a long time ago.
Wow.
Yeah, and the reason we grew user base so quickly because the VPN is very unique, very very strong in two areas. First of all, it's so far right now nobody can block it. So you can use it anytime, anywhere, any country. No worry about that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Sorry,
yeah, and the second stuff is second factor is it's very fast because VPN is an underlying network layer. If it draw down the performance, people don't like that. So we have a very, very good network architecture. I will talk later because it's related to the current blockchain project. We have a very good network architecture, so the performance is super good. That's the reason people like this VPN. Again, the three message app, three communication app we have today combined over 50 million users. It's all worldwide. And we don't have a user in China, even though I have a large team in China.
Yes, we talked about that. You mentioned that. How big is your team in China?
So I have two sites in China, one in Hangzhou, a beautiful city. We got around 100 people there. And we also have around 20 people in another city, and the name is Nanjing, not far to city, around 100 miles. And most of them, majority, 80% are developers. So we have around 100 developers, and they are very, very high quality people. That's the reason we can move this project very quickly, the blockchain project.
Okay. So let's talk about that. We discussed similar topics during our call before this interview. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting about your background and also what you're building is you have so much experience building products. You're really like a products kind of guy. And a lot of the people who are building, existing protocols or platforms, whatever it is, they don't have the experience that you do. And so I'd really like to know, at what point did you identify this as a product that you could build? And when did you have that sort of like that light bulb moment where you realized, you know what, we could do this and we could do it better?
My boss Ming, the WebEx co-founder Ming, he told people, say, "Hey, Steve has some street sense." So it's like a gut feeling. You feel this is the right thing you should do, or is the right way to do that, or the right timing. So based on my past experience, it looks like I do have this sense. So I always did the right thing in the right time. I don't know why.
Awesome. So one of the things, before we get into the tech, I want to talk about one of the most important themes I think about, that I think that you guys are building on. And this is probably the biggest takeaway out there for people listening. It's the fact that you guys are not building a decentralized dApp. Instead, you're taking something that's centralized. You have an existing user base, and then underneath that framework, you guys are building a decentralized architecture. I thought that was a very novel approach that not a lot of projects are doing right now. And I think that one of the biggest issues or obstacles, whatever you want to call it, that a lot of dApps have right now is attracting real users. But you guys are actually sort of bootstrapping your existing users and building them, using the app that you guys have. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Sorry. So we got a very, very unique situation. I think it's not duplicable. If other people try to copy this model, it may not be true because we have a very unique situation. As I mentioned, we have 3 communication apps. We got 50 million users. From the beginning, back to 2012, when we were designing the architecture, so we designed the underlying network layer is already distributed architecture, and then we build the apps on top of the network. So the Cover Me app, the Dingtong app, the SkyVPN app, they are all running on top of a shared communication layer, and that layer is a distributed layer. And today, we are open this layer to the community. We open source everything we have. We release the pattern, and we will, right now the network belongs to us, but we will open this technology, and the community will build the network, contribute the server, computers, bandwidth, and the network will no longer belong to us. And for our 3 messenger communication apps, the difference is, the network today belong to us. Tomorrow, the network belong to the community. And the app itself, I mean, the business logic, the user base, it doesn't need a change. So the migration process is transparent. The end user even may not notice that in the beginning. So that's very unique, because, the communication, I think the key part is the communication layer is already a distributed architecture.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's a really big point. I hope that everybody has let that sort of sink in. Is the 3 companies that you guys have already have tens of millions of users. And so you're not essentially changing the user experience. You're not asking users to use some sort of useless utility token in order to access the network that's always fluctuating in value. The user experience essentially stays stable, yet the underlying architecture changes. So one of the questions I have, well, I have a lot of questions from the technical side, but let's talk about how you plan to scale this out, because you're not replacing the whole architecture at once. I'm sure there is a process of sort of building that distributed network out, and I'd like to know, what are your plans for that? Are you just sort of scaling it more to the distributed side, or are you waiting till you have a certain amount of nodes or participants on the network and then switching?
So, today we have already several thousand servers worldwide, because the VPN need a lot of servers, and the Dingtong need a lot of servers. So we deployed 1,000 servers globally, and so we know the network very well. And this infrastructure actually can support huge capacities. The reason is, it's already a very distributed architecture. So whenever we need more capacity, we just add more servers. So it's a linear scale out. It's very easy. And today, so if we open the whole architecture to the community, and this architecture still works in this blockchain area. And if, for example, if this network has 10,000 servers or even million servers, the systems will still work very well. We don't need a change in the architecture. And but one thing we need to do is tokenize the network. It means, because the node is contributed by the community, right? For example, sorry, you have a server, you contributed the server to the network, and you need to receive reward, right? Token reward from the network. You cannot do something for free. It's not sustainable. So you do something, will receive reward. So that's, we call it tokenize. However, to tokenize the network, you need a blockchain to enable that. Yes. That's the painful part.
Well, that's where the challenge comes in. I want to talk about token economics a little bit later, but I want to give all of our listeners sort of a background into the consensus mechanism you guys are using. Also, how you're planning to approach on-chain and off-chain transactions. Are you guys using state channels? So let's just try to give everybody a brief breakdown of how your consensus mechanism works, and then go from there.
So, as I mentioned the last time, in the beginning, we didn't have a plan to build a blockchain platform by ourselves. our initial thought, we can use a blockchain platform, right? So we check out every public blockchain almost, for example, like Ethereum, EOS, Stellar, Nino, IOTA, Bytable, so many public blockchains, and we try to pick one. And in the end, we spend around 2 months. In the end, we get a very painful conclusion. It looks like none of them can support our volume of transaction, and we have to build one by ourselves. So as I said last time, you got a good car, but you don't find a freeway, and you have to build the freeway first. So that's the kind of the situation. And so this part is a challenging part, and so we spend a lot of time, around 3 months, to design the public blockchain platform. So as you mentioned, the consensus mechanism is very important, and other part is also important. And in the end, we adopt a very novel architecture we called two-layer sharding and the DAG-based, but it's a simplified DAG. And with this architecture, it can support like around 500,000 TPS, not 1 million. 1 million is impossible, I think. 500,000, something like that. However, 500,000 is still not enough for us because if we consider moving 50 million users to the platform, the volume is huge. It's over that, over 1 million, and we needed to think more. So in the end, we have a 3-layer platform. So one is off-chain. So some business logic needed to be processed in off-chain, but in a trusted way, in off-chain, still distributed. And the second part, we have service chain, and the business logic is handled in the service chain. For example, VPN session, VPN service will have a VPN chain, service chain. This chain will handle the VPN business logic on blockchain. And then last part, we have the main chain. So the main chain only handle financial settlement. It doesn't handle business logic. So that's the 3-layer architecture.
Okay. Can you just clarify what part again was using off-chain?
Let me give you an example. For example, I use Sky VPN for a session. So I used, for example, 500 megabyte data, and you cannot use a 500 megabyte as a billing unit. It's too large, right? And so the billing unit actually is very small. In our situation, we are using 500K kilobyte. So for a 500 megabyte session, you got 1,000 billing units. And if you record this 1,000 billing units in a blockchain, I think it will jam every blockchain. Yes. No one can handle that. So that we needed to put this part in off-chain. For example, save this information at decentralized storage, and there's some validation process to make sure the information is not changing, is true. So that's the off-chain part.
Okay. Awesome. I have more questions about the consensus mechanism and how it works, but on the topic of what you just said, I'd like to ask about privacy. So how are you ensuring that, because you're building this distributed database and you're dealing with what could be more sensitive information, people using a VPN, routing financial data, or people sending private messages via the Cover Me app. How are you ensuring that these nodes are not privy to the data that they are essentially transmitting?
Very good question. And the most important part, the data needed to encrypt. As I said, we built Cover Me, a very secure messenger app. So we use like a double encryption and end-to-end encryption. So it means end-to-end encryption means nobody can intercept the data.
Okay.
Yeah. So the server, I mean the node, they basically only see some binary data. They really have no way to decrypt the data. Yeah. Only the end user can receive the data, can decode the data. So that's the way we prevent a bad node to get the data. And this is one thing. Another thing, for example, for VPN, we are actually using multiple nodes to route the data, and the data is split, and a node doesn't have all the data.
Okay. So for anybody who didn't get that, basically the data is sort of like split into batches, and I know a lot of other VPNs do this as well, and it's sent off in different packets, if you will, although that's a little bit too small of a term, but it's sent off, right? And so the nodes are able to become secure relayers of this information without becoming privy to knowledge of what it is that they're actually sending.
Yes, yeah, correct.
Awesome. So let's discuss token economics and how that works. I know we talked about that a lot earlier. And so let's just start off with like a general explanation of the token economics. And then we can get into the nodes and how the tokens work with nodes.
Good. So let's start from the end user side. As you mentioned, we have 3 apps, and if user experience change after we move to decentralized world, that will actually cause huge issues. So for our 50 million users, after the app move to top, initially it doesn't have any change for the user. So they still need to pay using Apple in-app purchase or Google in-app purchase, or they can still enjoy the free service, but they will see some advertiser. And so we have free model and a paid model. And I think the vast majority of applications in the world are doing this 2 ways. Free model with advertising, sponsorship, or a paid model, right? And if we ask a user to pay with the cryptocurrency, it is very challenging. So I think it's not a good way right now. And yeah, so for us, for example, the VPN app for the Dingtone, we don't ask a user to pay with the cryptocurrency. However, they will receive reward as token.
Okay.
For example, if the more they use, the more tokens they will receive. And the token is more about a privilege, not some alternative payment. For example, let's say in my Dingtone app, if you need to create a large group, for example, about 100 people in a group, you need to hold a certain amount of tokens in your account.
Okay.
So it's like a deposit, or it's like a stake. A stake, right? Privilege. Yeah. The VPN, same thing. They need some certain amount of tokens to enjoy some special benefits. For example, high performance. And you don't need to buy the tokens. We will reward the tokens. Of course, every D app can design a different way. How do you reward the users? How do you define the privilege? It's a different way. Yeah,
definitely. So how about me for, let's say I'm an end user and I just use the VPN just to, watch Netflix in the States, because I'm from Canada, and anything else that I do as a normal retail kind of person. What does it mean for me? Let's say I've accumulated 1,000 of these points or tokens. What can I do with them other than stake them to start a group?
Good question. Yeah. So, token is an asset, right? It's money, right? And we reward, for example, you watch Netflix with the Sky VPN, you receive a lot of tokens. And those tokens, actually, these tokens are required to use some special functions or features. For example, you need to connect to a specific server, and only that server can watch Netflix or BBC player. And you cannot just make a payment to unlock this feature. you need a certain amount of tokens to access these features. So you need to hold those tokens. You cannot sell those tokens, otherwise you lose those kind of privileges. So we need, we want people hold the tokens, right? And reduce the number of tokens on the market. So that's the way token economic works.
Yes, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, of course, because the people own the token, right? They have the rights to sell that. We don't prevent that, right?
Yeah.
And actually, we will provide a very convenient way for them to sell the tokens. So we will have a deep integration with some exchanges, and those people, if they really want to cash out, they can sell the tokens. We don't encourage that, but they do can sell that. Yeah, and another interesting, I think this is a process an education process to make people understand what is cryptocurrency and what is the cryptocurrency can do, and what is the value of the cryptocurrency. And that's my feeling. With a long education process, normal people who doesn't know cryptocurrency before, after several months, they may start understand, oh, the cryptocurrency stuff is great. Maybe I invest a little bit with my money, and then it become an investor. Yeah, that's another thing we are trying to do that.
Definitely. Yes, it's interesting the model that you guys have for the end user and how they use those tokens, and I think it probably opens you guys up to being flexible to think of a lot of different ways to incentivize people that maybe previously didn't have access to, with your existing apps and user base. Now, I want to sort of steer the conversation towards the nodes themselves and how the token functions in relation to not the end user, but the validators on the network or the nodes or whatever you want to call them. What is the relationship? How does the token work there?
Good question. So in our situation, it's a little bit complicated because we have two pieces. So I remember we have a top network and a top chain, and they are different stuff. So they take token economics is a little bit different actually. So let me explain one by one.
Sure.
So let's start from the top chain. As we mentioned, it's a public blockchain, right? And so it's similar to Bitcoin. These nodes will mine tokens in 20 years. So we have a similar schedule like Bitcoin. Every 4 years, the number of token will is half. For example, the first year I think is around 4.7%, and the next 4 years it's about 2.7%, something like that.
Yes.
So node, that's a traditional way, right?
Sure.
Yeah. However, however, there is a special situations because we are using two-layer sharding and it's DAG-based. Certain node they doesn't participate in consensus mechanism. We are using PBFT DPoS, and some nodes doesn't participate in that. For example, we have advanced nodes. Those nodes only verify. Audit transaction. So the shard verify transaction and the advanced nodes only audit transactions. So they cannot mine tokens, but they need a reward, right? Nobody should do free job, so need a reward. So we defined a slight inflation. So every year we will issue 1 to 2% tokens, and these tokens will be rewarded to those nodes who doesn't participate in mining process, but they are doing contributions. But as a result, there is inflation, right? Inflation is not good. We need to kill the inflation, right? And so we have other mechanisms. For example, if a user needed to create create an account on top chain, or they need to deploy a smart contract, or they need some RAM, CPU, they need to pay a fee. So those fees will be burned those fees doesn't go to some nodes. They will be burned. And yeah, and in our design, the number of tokens will be burned should be larger than the tokens will be inflated. So in the end, the number of total tokens will be reduced gradually in small amount.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the first part about the top chain. And the second part, let's talk about the top network. So this part is doing the real business. They are providing the communication service, right? Yeah. So a nodes will receive tokens based on the contributions, particularly bandwidth, because we are doing communication. So most of the time, the contribution is measured by bandwidth. For example, a node so 1 gigabyte traffic for a VPN session, he should receive 1 token or 2 tokens. We can define the price. Sorry, the price actually is not defined by us. It's the price is determined by a marketplace. So there is a decentralized marketplace in this system, and the node, they will submit an asking price, and the app, I mean the D app, they will submit a bidding price. So one side is asking, another side is bidding, and the marketplace is decentralized. They will match two sides and settle down the agreement. It's locked in smart contract. So every node can their own asking price, and with this marketplace mechanism, so the price is flexible, not determined by some single person.
So you have a lot of elements that take out, incentivizes people also to hold, and also the schedule for mining is actually set up in a way that's similar to Bitcoin. We talked about the actual circulating supply. When you guys do list, and you mentioned that it's only around 5 or 6, excuse me, 5 or 6%. Is that correct?
Oh yes, Sai, you are right. We designed the token distribution for long-term success of this project. We are not doing the short-term sense, and that's not my style. Yeah. And let me explain the token lockup information. So we got the team, the foundation, the seed investor, and the private sale investor, and in the future there is a public sale, right? And for example, our team is locked in 3 years, so there is a 12 months cliff, and after that they will vest in 24 months, so total 36 months. And the foundation is the same thing. And to my seed investors, these powerful guys, they have 1 year lockup. They cannot sell the token after 1 year. After the token is listed on the exchange, 1 year. So it's a very long lockup. So as you said, in the beginning there is only 6%. I think it's 6% circulating, and 1 year later it's only 20 something, less than 30%.
Very low. It's very low. There's a couple questions there. So, I'm sure there's a lot of people wondering, when is the public sale? When is that happening?
That's a good question. I wanted to do that as early as possible, but unfortunately, we were in the stealth model, and the people outside the investor community, they don't know us, and of course, the investment circle knows this project. This is a good project. A lot of people know it, but normal people, they don't have the information about us. So we need to do a lot of marketing activities, social marketing, build the community, and the people understand our technology, our product, and our vision, our mission. We will want to make sure people understand that this is a blockchain project for long-term success, and make people understand this is the real thing. The real technology, real product, and the real people are doing real things. So that's I think it will take some time, maybe 2 months. Of course, we need help people like you.
So it's refreshing to see that you guys are putting lockups on your seed investors, because that's been a problem for a lot of projects, especially out of China. They don't put locks on their seed investors, and unfortunately they dump on a lot of retail people. On the subject, we were talking a few days ago, and you were sharing with me some of the seed investors that came on, and some of the pretty substantial connections that some of these guys have. Could you share maybe just like 2 or 3 of them for people listening?
Sure. Yeah. So as I said, these people, the seed investors, they will stay with us for a long time, and these people are very successful people. Some of them are very successful. For example, one of the seed investor, his name is Gong Hongjia, Chinese name Gong Hongjia. So he is basically the highest return investor in the whole world. This friend, he invested, I think, $300,000 in a company about like 15 years ago, and today that stake is worth $10 billion. $10 billion. Yeah. So he is a very famous guy in China, and so he participated in my seed round because this guy is very knowledgeable in technology side, and he really like our technology and like what we are doing. And of course, he is my friend. And so this is one person. So another person, he is also a billionaire. His name is Wu Yongming. So he is the co-founder of Alibaba. Yeah. In the same city, Hangzhou. Remember, I have 100 people in Hangzhou. Yeah, so Alibaba is also in that city. So this person, he also like what we are doing. Alibaba has a Ali Cloud. Ali Cloud, I think, is the number 3 in the world, just behind Microsoft Azure. Number 1 is AWS, second is Azure, third is Ali Cloud. And he said, Jesus, you are doing something Ali Cloud in decentralized way. So he really likes that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think, that's about it for my questions. I have one last question for you, and this is something we ask everybody that comes on the show. And that's to share with us your vision for Top Network in the future. So let's look 3 years into the future. What is your big vision for the project?
So let's start from why we do this. And last September, we were inspired by another project. I not name that. We were inspired by that project. This guy tried to do some decentralized VPN stuff. And that's really inspired me because I had been doing the centralization stuff. So we control everything, user, money, the infrastructure, we control everything. And when I saw that project, it really shocked me. And then I started thinking about that and take some time. I'm as in a person like thinking, deep thinking. Yeah. And after some time, I get a conclusion. In the communication industry, I don't understand other industry, but in my communication industry, I think decentralization is the right way to do. So communication should be decentralized. Nobody should own the whole communication network. Nobody should not do bad thing in the communication network. For example, block users and decrypt the content, those kind of things. And the communication network should support free speech. That's my opinion. And that's the first thing. Second thing, the network requirements from device is going high and high. For example, 5G will appear in next several years, and 5G device support 5G usually has a huge bandwidth requirement. For example, let's say VR, AR, those kind of things require huge bandwidth. And in the future, if you build everything by yourself, it will be very high cost. And for developers, if you spend the money, people on those things, because this is not your core value, or it's not the best part you can do. If you spend too much time, money on this, it's not a good way. So I think in the end, people shouldn't do implement the network by themselves. They should use a public internet, a public infrastructure. I mean, public infrastructure, and this infrastructure is low cost, is secure, is open to everybody. Yeah, and it's of course it's tokenized. Yeah, and I think in the future most public infrastructure will be working like this. For example, storage. There is the IPFS and FICON, right? And there are also some projects are doing decentralized computing, computing or decentralized AR. So that's all about the infrastructure. I think, I strongly believe those infrastructure should be decentralized, and the blockchain is a good way to implement the vision. So back to the communication industry, in my point of view, in the next 5 years, a lot of infrastructure will be available in decentralized way, and especially in communication industry. And the top network, I think we are leading this trend in the communication area. So I guess the top network will have a huge network for normal developers and low the cost, and it's also very secure, support free speech. That's my mission.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your vision for Top Network, explaining to us how token function, also the system architecture. So anybody who's been watching this interview, please, subscribe to the channel. We do a lot of interviews like this. And I'm also going to include links down below to, Steve, is your website up yet?
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay, so I'll include links to that, any other materials as well. And feel free to leave comments on this video. Tell me what you think, and I'll do my best to answer them all. So thank you so much, Steve, for coming on the show.
Thank you, Sai.